What is up, everybody? I hope you are enjoying this episode of my man Adam Shell, and I wanted to take a second while I have your ear to let you know that next Thursday, October 17th from 7 to 9:30 p.m. EST, Breathe with Cannabis is back, and this month's theme is amazing. This month's theme is the Relationship Healing Edition. So whether or not you're having challenges in how you relate to yourself, your romantic partner, friendships, cannabis, anything in life, this workshop is going to be an amazing opportunity to come allow yourself to usher in your next level of evolution when it comes to your relationships alongside our worldwide community of spiritual seekers just like you. So to find out more about the event and register, head down to the show notes for this episode, and I will see you all there. Now back to the show. Greetings, my brothers and sisters. Sending gratitude to all of you who are joining in today to accompany us down the rabbit hole of self-exploration through plant medicines. My name is Ryan Sprague, and I'm here to tell you that your frequency is now set and tuned to explore psychedelic medicines and the impact they've made among the countless psychonauts exploring the last true frontier. Buy a ticket and take the ride with me as we get true first-hand accounts of the experiences, benefits, risks, and transformations taking place within the ever-expanding world of psychedelic medicines on This One Time on Psychedelics. If you guys have been following the show for even a small amount of time now, then you already know how much I absolutely adore the idea of decentralization. I am careful to ever make anything into a quote-unquote cure-all. However, for many of the issues we face as a collective today, the topic of decentralization offers many solutions, and in this week's episode, I bring back a returning guest and one of my dear brothers to pick up where we left off in our first episode and dive even deeper into the topic of decentralization, what the implications of this realm are for each of us who choose to partake within it, and some ways each of you who are interested can begin participating in it starting today. So please, help me in welcoming back my brother, Amethyst Flame, to the show. Amethyst Flame, you gangster, you. Bro, I'm so excited to have you back on. As I mentioned in the intro, we've been doing a lot of work together that we were still doing in the first episode we did together, but we've been doing it longer now. We also just got to meet in person out at the retreat that I hosted in Catskill, New York. We're going to get into all the details there for all you guys. Sorry ahead of time for all the FOMO you're going to have when we talk about Nerf gun battles and all sorts of fun stuff. But dude, I'm super excited to have you here with me today. How's your day going so far, you gangster?
Ryan, my brother, wow, it's so good to be back here, and especially after meeting in the physical and having Nerf gun battles and all the good stuff that we took part of together as family, community, and tribe. And today's amazing. Building off that, I just got off a session with Milan, who I got to meet in person at the retreat also. And then, you and I are vibing. We're having our own conversation before we hop on here. I'm doing great because I love this. I love building in community and co-creating and coming together as people is like, hey, what's next?
Dude, 100%, bro. And, for everyone listening, this is a great opportunity to see potentially what you can do that can bring people together. At the end of the day, I think that when I was first starting out, I looked at these other people I was seeing that, quote unquote, had more experience or whatever the, illusion was that my mind was telling me. And was like, oh, well, I can't host retreats yet. I can't bring people together yet. What do I know, right? Who am I to do that type of work? What I've realized over the last 5 years is that there's no bad opportunity to bring people together, and what we're going to get into today is a lot of this kind of stuff. And we're also going to go over all the fun details of the retreat too. But, I wanted to set an intention for this for everyone at home listening to ask yourself, what can you do, right? Can you have one of your buddies over and start talking about cool stuff like this stuff that we're going to talk about today? Can you start a workshop? Do you have a property that maybe you can start hosting men's workshops or unisex workshops or sauna workshops or workout together? Or just have a fire in your backyard and invite your friends over and start talking about Web3, blockchain, bringing community together, unlocking the deep why inside of you to be able to allow each person that you're with to light up the world collectively and together. There's no point at which in your evolution you can't just go, hey, you know what? I got some people around me. And if you do, let's bring them together and let's figure out how we can all work to create a better world for generations to come and a greener earth for generations to come. And so I'm really excited to dive into all this shit, man. You know me, bro. This is my bread and butter.
Same, bro. And that's why when you and I first came together, first of all, thank you to the universe, high self, creator, divine, bringing divine reflections together in the same frequency. Exactly. Game recognized game. Because it was quite a way it showed up. It showed up through me listening to a brother of mine, inviting me to do something through Rainbow Bridge into another organization that filtered me into this organization that then opened up into this conversation right now. And none of that would have been possible without people overcoming their limiting beliefs and inner voices telling them that they're not worthy or capable of doing this kind of stuff. I got news for you. If you're listening to this podcast, you're worthy and you're capable of doing this stuff. And the first step is just to, like my brother's saying, do something. Ryan mentioned the inner why, right? And it's like when we are starting to do these things, it's not about the how or the when. It's about the why and then the what. Mm-hmm. But the societal conditioning is based on the how and the when, because that's can mirror into scarcity and fear. How's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? Instead it's like, well, why is it going to happen? And when we start with that, that's when we start creating these, or let me say, we start aligning to these scenarios that are in higher frequencies than where we were before, because those lower thought patterns are limiting beliefs. And then when we are aligning those higher frequency patterns, guess what? We align together with others in those frequency patterns. And then you get magical opportunities to go to magical places and do magical things and carry that magic back to where you are.
Yeah, dude, 100%. That's exactly how it happened for me. For any of you guys listening right now, 5 years ago, I probably feel a lot like many of you feel right now, where, I was working at a job I didn't like. I had a lot of cool friends that I had grown up with and whatnot that I still love to this day. I'll always love, but are interested in other things. No judgment, but they just weren't like really into the same stuff I was into at that point in my life. I was really into spirituality. I hadn't gotten into Web3 and blockchain and everything that we're going to be talking about today, or at least a lot of what we're going to be talking about today yet. But again, like I had started to ask myself, like, what would it be? What would it feel like? Or what would it look like to be an entrepreneur? What would it look like to start putting my voice out there? And all those kind of thoughts terrified me, especially because no one around me was doing it, right? Like I didn't have any examples. I didn't have any mentors, et cetera, yada, yada. So, again, like once I met Mark England, right, who we were talking about before we hit record, all of a sudden he was like, hey, man, I like what you're writing out there, because I had tagged him and I had put myself out there and said, hey, this is what I'm feeling into. This is the method I'm going to use to deliver it, which was Facebook at the time. And because I had heard Mark in a podcast and I was talking about word magic, I tagged him in a post I made and he reached out to me. And so we formed a connection. That's how easy it can be, right? I didn't need to leave my house. I didn't need to go join a program or anything yet. It was just me tagging someone I had heard on the podcast that inspired me. That was it. And that changed the entire trajectory of my entire life. The reason I'm here right now, hanging out with this cool dude, Amethyst, talking to you guys, is because I made that one decision. That ripple effect is still playing out to this very day. And then when I started actually going to meet Mark in person and started to hang out with other people I've been meeting on Zoom, all of a sudden my whole friend group changed. And also the vibration I was in changed, because now I was around everyone who was like, yeah, how do we be an entrepreneur? How do we get out of the system? How do we start really like allowing the purpose within us to win the battle here, right? To not allow the limiting beliefs to come into play, but just allow the actual why inside of us that's always been there, but maybe has been covered over, maybe hasn't had the place to come out, etc., to start winning. It happened through osmosis. It wasn't even like I got into any certain groups that were like, okay, we're going to get really clear on this. Like I've been a part of those before, and honestly, they didn't really do much for me. But, again, like when I was just around other people and there was no pressure, it was just rising tides lift all ships. And so once I was around people like that, everything shifted. And that's exactly one of the main reasons I do this show, because I understand that for a lot of people, you may not have your community yet. You may not have found those people. For me, my community before I found them was podcasts. And when you think about that idea of like you are the 5 people you spend the most time with, well, what you listen to counts for that. So maybe you're not like, maybe you don't know exactly where to go to find all the right people yet, but you know what you like to listen to. Well, that also starts to increase your influence of being around different types of people. And as you do, your thoughts will change, your emotions will change, your, experience of life will change. And, again, like I wish there was a better process I could give you guys, but it's so much more cooking than baking. And it's completely based off of, and this is the best part, following the fun. There was no part of this where I was like, oh, like my calculations show that if I go down to Virginia and hang with Mark England, that I'm going to make more money per month. It wasn't about that. It was just like, oh, this seems really fun. Yeah, let me go do that. And then I just kept doing that for the last 4 years. And now I'm here, So again, like, I wish there were a way that I could tell you exactly what you need to do, right? But that's the part that's actually the most fun. Because again, like you were saying, Amethyst, our job is the why and the what. God's job is the how and the when. And let me tell you, God does it much better than we can. Leave that to him or leave that to it, right? Allow us to really tap into the why and the what, and allow us to thrive into the people, places, and things that are right for us at this particular time in human history.
Oh, brother. And you said what I heard you say was you're not going to say how, but what I want to say is bring attention to what Ryan shared in there, specifically around, first of all, where we're placing our attention, right? Because is the attention on the why, or is the attention on the how, or the limiting belief around the how? And that's the simplest thing. Consciously place your attention on your why. And when you do that, you'll become aware of how many times in a day unconsciously you're placing your attention on the limiting belief. It starts with that. And then the next piece, what my brother was sharing, is that, hey, look, his story, how he started, he used what was available. But the great thing is, for the people listening to this, most of you are already in Ryan's incredible community. And that community is amazing. And when I walked into the retreat, I was the last person to show up, and it felt like I was walking into a family gathering with everybody who had known each other a very long time. And so the great thing is that your story is going to be your individual story, your individual fractalized human experience of creation, but you're already in a space that there is awareness around growth and leveling up and coming together as community. And when you dial in with people that are already stewarding and co-creating community, you're creating more exponential amplification, because you don't know who you're going to meet in this community that's going to link you to other communities, that's going to link you beyond, that's aligned with your purpose. And when we place our attention on our purpose, like Ryan said, you don't think about the calculations of it. It just starts to show up, and it usually shows up in ways that you can't even imagine or anticipate.
Dude, 100%. And that's why I always say, right? Like, the heart must come before the mind, because the mind, it's a great tool, right? I don't believe for 1 second in those spiritual practices that are like the mind is bad and whatever. The mind is an extremely valuable and important tool. Yet the challenge that most people have, because we never learned this, is that, I'm going to use logic before I bring my heart into the equation. And actually, it's opposite, because no matter what you feel into, you can make it happen. But at the end of the day, why do people say, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life? Well, what's the opposite? If you don't love what you do, you work every single moment of your life. And at the end of the day, that's speaking to the fact that whatever you're going to do in life, whether it's what you want to do or what you don't want to do, there's going to be challenges. The only difference is, do you want those challenges to be able to actually make sense and be contextualized within the concept of why you're here, why you're a human being at this time? Or do you want it to be for someone else's mission that you're not in alignment with? So at the end of the day, if you're able to put your heart first and figure out, who am I? What am I? What is my purpose? These deeper questions. And again, like, you don't need to know the answer. You just need to have a direction. Like, I don't know what my entire grandiose purpose is, but maybe I like podcasting. I'll start with that. That's what I did. I didn't know I was going to be cannabis coaching and all this stuff. I just knew that I loved podcasting and I had been wanting to podcast. So I started there, and then as a result, the next step formed itself. That's when I met Mark. And then through meeting Mark, I got into coaching, but it was just for me. I wasn't going to ever be a coach. Then all of a sudden, it was like Mark started pushing me, right? A little bit more, pulling me rather. And I was like, all right, well, I'll try it for some free clients. Then I started realizing, wow, this is really fun. Then I got my first paid client, one-on-one. But I was like, I'll never do group coaching. And now, fast forward to today, I have, 2 masterminds. I have group coaching programs. I have one-on-one. I have all this stuff that I never knew I was going to do, but I didn't need to know all that. All I needed to know was, how do I follow my fun here? And what is really going to allow me to feel like me? Well, podcasting is the first step. So I guarantee for anyone listening, you probably don't know the entire trajectory of what's going to happen. That would be boring if you did, but you probably know the first step or the next step. And all you have to do is start there. Maybe even wanting to go to yoga. Go to a yoga class. You never know who you're going to meet there, right? Get yourself out of your normal environment and watch how magic ensues. It's the best. What is up, family? I wanted to take a second while you're tuning in to tell you about an amazing new product I recently began using. Now, you guys know I do ads very rarely, and my promise to you is that anything I speak about is something I personally have found value in using regularly. Well, recently, I came across a company called Brain Supreme, who sells microdoses of mushrooms mixed with adaptogens, nootropics, and other additions as well. And even though I've microdosed off and on for years, I have never felt results like these. In only 2 weeks, I'm sleeping better, I have far less mind chatter, my ability to perform has exponentially improved, and best of all, the sense of inner peace I've been feeling is like nothing I've ever experienced in microdosing before. Right now, you can get 15% off of any of their products when you use code SPRAGUE15 at checkout. And to find out more about them and grab some for yourself, head down to the show notes for this episode and begin your journey into microdosing today. Now back to the show.
Yeah, that aspect of play, having spent time together in real life, it was a lot. I have children. They remind me to play. But otherwise, I'm also deep in my responsibilities as a father and what it means to provide. And beyond just what I'm doing for my family now, right? But helping and coaching others, what they're doing with their family now, but thinking much more long term, which really might mean that you don't see all the benefits of what you're doing right now. And getting okay with that, it's part of a bigger thing. To think like, I've been really tapping in with the trees, right? Like, they're so patient, rooted deep in Mother Earth, arms always reaching up, and they don't move. They got to just stand there through whatever gets thrown their way. And, we get the opportunity, we can run around, we can jump. So I'm finding like, where is this balance of being a steward on Earth right now for the next generations of having patience and also being able to play. And I'd like to get really real here for a second. So I'm the kind of individual that likes to place himself in scenarios that could be considered very high risk or high pressure to others. And it's been an MO of mine through most of my life. And it's led to great growth. And it's also led to some really hard times that are self-inflicted because of programming around, I got to do it this one way.
Yeah.
And even for all the work I've done, for everybody that I coach, like, I'm a human. I'm a soul having a human experience. So I still got my stuff. And the other day, this week, I was pushing myself for something that I had as a plan. And I've been having so much fun with most of this project, but this piece I was not having that much fun with. And it eventually got to a point where I wasted a lot of time, and I essentially had a breakdown where I was just really upset on the ground. Why isn't this working? It's this one thing. And if this one thing doesn't work, the whole month's work isn't worth what I did. Making this huge story out of it. And in the moment, it's cool. I allowed myself, even though I knew it wasn't the right approach, or let me say the most conscious approach, I was like, I want to feel my feelings. But what I'm saying here is like, look, if I had just gone with play from the beginning, I wouldn't have gotten that whole little loop there. Mm-hmm. And as soon as I went through that and just was like, whatever, it's going to be what it be, the next day things just started to open up. Mm-hmm. And it's to the point where like I had a visit from an angel in a human form give me a message that I was already aware of, but it was the confirmation I needed to be 100% with it. And at that moment, I was like, oh yeah, play, dude. Like, what are you doing? What you been doing this week? Thinking you got to like push things forward.
Yeah, dude.
But that's the balance, right? So like the balance I see of being a steward here now is like the play and the patience. Yeah. Because we are going to have to stand through some pretty uncomfortable stuff on these paths that we're on.
100%.
But the training in that is to find the play even when it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I'm still getting better at that one.
Dude, it's a work in progress. Like we all are, right? We're all works in progress. The only outcome we're going to is 6 feet under, and I'm not rushing to get to that outcome. So I'm happy to be a work in progress, but at the same time, like what allows the play to be found in those otherwise uncomfortable situations is being able to attach it to something that really matters to you. That's where the why is the most important thing. It's the foundation of everything. There's a famous quote that I love that says, if you know your why, you can bear any how. And trust me when I say life's going to throw you some hows, like it's just a thing, right? So think of it this way. If you decide randomly, you're just going to start doing ice baths, right? Those are a pretty challenging thing to do, especially for most people. So let's say you have no why, you just start doing ice baths. Well, the second your first foot touches that water, everything inside of you, no matter if you have a why or not, is going to tell you, get the fuck out of here. What are you doing? This is crazy. You don't need to do this. And the only way that you can actually find peace within that ice bath is if you know why you're in there, right? So your why could simply be, I want to experience uncomfortability. Now, when your mind says, get the fuck out, oh, that's the uncomfortability I was wanting to experience. Thank you. Okay, cool. Now I can contextualize this ice bath as making sense within my reality. Because again, life is going to be challenging. So if you don't have any reason why you're going through these challenges, it's very easy to end up in the victim mindset. And when we look at the mainstream right now, they are glorifying the absolute fucking hell out of victimizing yourself, right? Out of believing that you're a victim, believing that other people are who makes you upset, right? Taking all the power away from the challenging truth at times that everything is an inside job. And at the end of the day, if you choose to fall into that, good luck, right? I've never met anyone in my life, and I never will. I guarantee that is truly fulfilled, truly successful, that also plays the victim card in life. They just don't. So again, like I imagine for everyone listening to this podcast, you would have already gotten triggered by this point of me talking about this stuff. So if you're still here, you're not falling into that. I don't mean to say that like you won't have moments where you fall into it. Like I think we all do. I definitely do. But that ability to go, whoa, that's the mind virus right there. That's the virus of telling me that woe is me and all of this stuff, when in reality, no one's going to come save the day for me. So if I want to fall into that mindset, I'm still going to have to get myself out. But by the time I get myself out, I'm going to have to go so much effort just to get back to neutral before I can actually start to go above that, And so for me, I've learned by touching the hot stove, it's just not worth going into that anymore. And I think everyone's got to go through a certain degree of that before they realize for themselves. But that why is the most important thing. Without that, life has no objective. There's no reason to be here. It's just nihilism central. I guess I'll just fall into hedonism and whatever, so having that why allows you to bear the uncomfortability associated with life. And when you go through that uncomfortability, you're going to naturally, if you continue to go through it, find people, places, and things that resonate with you. And then one day you'll wake up and you'll be at this fucking awesome retreat in New York like we were at, where, that was a really interesting moment for me too. Like being able to like look around and go, holy shit, like it was all a dream. This was all a dream. Even in just the last couple of years, like I've hosted retreats before, but never for a community that I had created, never for people that I had brought together like that. Milan and Banksy, it was their first time in America. They were like kids in candy stores with dispensaries over here. Oh my God, right? And that was so much fun to watch, and it was so much fun to be able to bring people together, allow them to live what I call the highly optimized lifestyle of like, yeah, we work out. Yeah, we take hikes. Yeah, we have intimate talks. And we also rip Nerf guns. We also run around and play cornhole and can jam and play basketball and shoot pool and all these things. We also take steam saunas together. We also do cold plunges together and cheer each other on. We also eat high quality food together. We also go on adventures together. We also really talk about like, hey, what's bugging you recently? Let's all talk about it so we realize we're not alone here. Like, all of that stuff is the giblets of life, as my Canadian client says, right? Like, they really are the giblets. That's what real living is, and you can extrapolate that into your whole life being true living if you know your why, because then every moment of your life can be intentional because you're working towards a goal. And then you'll find other people that are working towards a common goal. And then you don't have to do it alone. You're together and magic ensues. And that's really what I feel like the world is waking up to now more than ever, is like, obviously we realize we can't trust politics, right? We can't trust the mainstream. We can't trust any of this shit because it's probably all lizard beings at the fucking front of it, right? Or some other type of humanoid creature that is not human beings with a soul. So at the end of the day, if we're relying on these powers that shouldn't be for our food supply and things like that, well, how do we get the fuck out of that position so they have no power over us anymore? And here comes the the conversation of decentralization. And a lot of the reason why I fucking love you so much and everything we've done together, because it's allowed me to really extrapolate decentralization into a much not only broader concept, but also one that I can see playing out in different areas. Like, for instance, I get all my food from the Amish now, right? So if Whole Foods decided tomorrow to clear their shelves, wouldn't affect me at all, right? Because I'm going to the Amish for my food. You know, the more of us to get together collectively and go, hey, when we all hit in crypto or as we're building businesses, let's start buying land together and start really like building houses together, right? Commune style, if you want to call it that, you know, but at the end of the day, that's how humanity is supposed to exist. We're not supposed to be a man and a woman, two men, two women, whatever it is, out in the world alone with no friends or family to call on if shit gets rough. And yeah, we're living the American dream. Like, again, if you want to live that, cool. That's your free will. You can do that. But, you know, for me, that's never been what I've wanted. You know, for me, like having solid people around you that you can depend on is the most important thing, you know, and that all comes again from the why, you know. So it's just really cool to think about all these things and, you know, to have looked around at that retreat and gone, if the world ended right now, we'd be totally fine. We'd have everything we needed. We'd have a magician here for every type of role that we need, and we'd be able to exist, you know, and not to be grim or, you know, that kind of talk. But at the same time, it's like, we never know what's going to happen in the world. But if we have the right people with us, we're in the right places and we're doing the right things, it's going to make it a lot easier to contextualize if and when shit gets weird. Put it that way. So, yeah.
And to build on all of those amazing things you're saying, this is the paradigm shift right here, right now. What my brother's sharing, what we're talking about. The paradigm shift is where when we are consciously choosing to place our attention somewhere and our intention with it. And the thing is, the rub is that deep in the DNA of almost every human being on earth is encoded trauma. That in that encoded trauma lives limiting belief patterns. So we have chosen to come here, stewards of the DNA at this time, and place our attention and intention on different ways to be here than what we've been ingrained and programmed. That's literally living in the biologic quantum code of the human vessel. The DNA lives in the cytoplasm of the cell, which is 80% water. So the DNA is 80% water. That means it structures to light and sound. And water, by Dr. Masaru Emoto, shows that it also structures according to thought and prayer. So when you start putting these pieces together, it's very important that we are conscious of where we place our attention and intention, but also gentle with ourselves, because we're undoing thousands of years of programming that has trained humans to unconsciously place their attention on limiting beliefs and believing that they are victims, giving their power away to something external to themselves. Decentralization, centralization, they're opposite in this realm right now, but in creation, it's all whole. Creator is centered, creator is decentralized. Creator is fractalized amongst these individual reflections. Creator is whole as all things. So when we as my brother was sharing about the retreat, when we come to gather in these places where we're consciously placing our attention, CCC, Conscious Cannabis Collective.
Yeah.
Just consciously placing their collective attention towards something in a way that's beneficial for others. As I shared, I felt like I walked into a family gathering. I had deep connection with every person there. One-on-one, collective, communal, steam baths, incredible food. Shout outs to Will and Kim.
Yeah, they were amazing.
I don't even know what the caffeine stuff was that we were drinking, but I don't drink a lot of caffeine, but I love those things.
Those are the Update energy drinks,
working out. Yeah, so the Update energy drinks. Yeah. The working out was great. And so it's so beautiful because get to have these personal connections in a great space. And why is it all there? My journey to there was bookended by two experiences that I almost didn't go. And then when I got back, it was kind of a hard landing. And these two things were based around limiting belief patterns. Okay. This in the middle wasn't. So when we start talking about Ryan sharing about, where did he shift his attention from shopping at a store to shopping with real people, to shopping for products, to sourcing real food from real people? So the attention is now there. And that's what I'm saying. And I said it in response to what my brother's saying. This is the paradigm shift. Us choosing to place our attention consciously and enter into these realms of digital stewardship over this next unfolding, because we are entering into right on Earth, right here on Earth. It hasn't been like this. Like, we're entering into a space where what we do can really ripple out quickly for generations. And it's already been happening, but let's say that it's already unconsciously been happening a lot in the way the world is built, right? Unconsciously being part of these centralized systems that are disempowering and living out of alignment with natural law, right? And then we're talking about, wow, now we have this digital space where we can connect instantly and then turn it into the physical. And we can do things in here much faster and amplify them. So when we do come together in the physical, it's much more harmonized. Yeah. And that's what I really wanted to say about this experience at this retreat or this advancement. However one looks at it, is we come together and we level up. And when we're doing that in these types of containers, all the people that are there, it's like naturally aligned for the optimal experience. So then everybody gets what they need so they can go back to their area of the earth grid and be the pillar in the community anchoring these frequencies and codes in.
Yeah, dude. It's literally the Wu-Tang Clan. Like, for anyone who likes rap, if you know the Wu-Tang Clan, what was that whole idea, right? They're all individual fucking units doing their own thing. They have their own projects, but they come together collectively and create something beautiful. It's like the super groups of the 90s, you know, Mad Season or any of these kind of like, you know, rock groups that started. It's all people at the top of their game coming together to be able to create something epic together. And when you are someone with that why, you're someone that knows how to put pen to paper or whatever it's going to take, you will naturally just start finding these people. And like Amethyst is talking about, like, this is the wave of the future. This is why I'm so bullish, to use a crypto term, on Web3 and blockchain. But not just that, the whole idea of decentralization. Like, you know, it was about halfway through Amethyst program where it actually clicked to me. And I was like, oh, my whole life I've been practicing decentralization. Before cannabis was legal, how did any of us get it? We didn't get it through centralized means. And then when the pandemic happened, guess what happened to centralized cannabis? All of a sudden, all the people that were depending on these dispensaries for their medicine got shut down, right? For health reasons, which was the most hilarious thing. Now, again, like, you know, that's what happens with centralization. If you want to be part of centralized shit, well, then you're going to have to be okay with whatever the powers that shouldn't be decide to play on you for a power play. But if you're decentralized, you're unfuckwithable, right? Cool, whatever. Like, think of it this way. You know, let's talk about the cannabis black market for a second. When the pandemic happened, how many black market dealers were like, oh, sorry, I can't do it. They were like, dude, they're shutting down. We're going to make more money, right? So again, you can see just in that little tiny microcosm of why decentralization matters, because someone doesn't get to make the objective answer for everyone. Oh, these got to shut down. Sorry, I guess everything's got to shut down, right? That is not a good place to be in, especially when we know how fucking corrupt these people are, right? So at the end of the day, no judgment, but clear discernment. That is not my flavor of ice cream. So therefore, I got to build my own sundae over here. I'm not going to go to them to get ice cream anymore, because not only is it not the right flavor, but also they keep fucking with the ice cream machines every time I go there and being like, sorry, they were down for 3 hours. Now it costs double amount, you know, and things like that. So at the end of the day, the more that we all just start thinking about decentralized community, the same kind of idea, right? How can you bring people together just the same way that during the pandemic bullshit, it didn't matter. I didn't, you know, like, it was kind of funny how people were like, oh, you can't go to restaurants, you can't go whatever. I was like, dude, I'm hanging out with people nonstop. Why? Because we're not part of centralization. So at the end of the day, I can easily go down to Mark's farmhouse, be with a bunch of other people that are like, yeah, this is a big scam. And it didn't matter, right? Didn't matter at all. They could take away our restaurants and we were like, oh, thank you for taking a distraction away from us. You know what? Most of these restaurants have seed oils. Thank you guys for taking that away. Well, you can't go to movie theaters. Well, I can't really hit volcano bags in the movie theater. So I guess it's actually better to just, you know, watch movies at home. Oh, you're not going to be able to go to concerts. Oh, that's okay. Some of my friends DJ. Actually, this is much healthier, staying home, not having to spend a lot of money, you know, not having to drive home in traffic or whatever. Thank you. This is actually awesome. That's what happens when you start going on the decentralized movement. As they take away more centralized things, you're actually grateful for it, because they're just distractions. And that's what you realize. They're just all distractions. And you can't realize it until you start practicing this way of being. And it, like I said, it was about halfway through your mentorship when I realized, like, oh, no wonder this idea of DeFi, decentralized finance, resonates with me so much, because my entire life has been about me trying to live my life decentralized. I just never had a term to describe it before. So that was a huge aha moment for me.
Yeah. It's amazing when we come to the realization what it actually means in real terms. And the other aspect of it that coincides with that so perfectly, and what I see it as now, is it is a school for coming into right relations with currency. And I don't mean just currency as money. Money is a representation of currency. I mean currency as the energy of where we humans place our attention and intention. There's a reason why when you look at money, specifically US money, especially the dollar bill, which right now still probably is the most prevalent dollar on earth, it has prayers written on it. From chaos comes order. It has the owl. It's got all these signs and symbols. Why? Because people look at it and place their attention on these prayers that were written by somebody. There's rules to this place. There's rules to this reality. There are principles to how it functions. And when you learn the techniques that align you to the principles, things happen faster. So one of those is we have to, as beings on earth, let me say, to level up into our birthright is required that we come into true stewardship of our currency, individually, collectively, and the recognition that it's actually none of ours and it's all of ours because it's creation. So acknowledging that we're a piece of it, it's a vessel it flows to and moves through, but it's not ours to hold on to. If you think about your vessel, this beautiful gift, this human spacesuit that's so popular in the universe that you got multidimensional things battling over it, seeking to place its attention one place or the other. It's such an amazing thing. But when you think about it, I think it's every 7 years your body goes through and makes all new cells. So it's not holding on to that. I was only given this many cells. I have to hold on to these cells. No, every 7 years. Oh, here we go. I got new ones. So when we start thinking about currency, it's like, the currency is not limited. The perspective of the belief system is limited. So this space is phenomenal for allowing us to, first of all, be conscious that what does it mean to be in charge of your currency? It means you got to be responsible.
Yeah.
And that victim mindset, that's an irresponsible mindset. So oftentimes, well, not oftentimes, just about every time with anybody I work with, the main thing is, where's your mindset? And when Ryan and I clicked up, I'm like, Ryan's mindset is in a strong, good place. We're going to share some techniques to brush up, but we're also going to make moves into crypto, because I saw how ready he was and that he was starting to get it. And so, yeah, the mentorship is amazing and brought us together in that way. And, you know, that concept of decentralization and anchoring it in. And it's like moving that one step further into that, you know, the ebook I wrote, Digital Stewardship, the inner circle group that you're in, the DAO that we're forming. And this is all part of the long term, right? Training people up in mindset and fundamentals, in mindset fundamentals and crypto fundamentals. Finding what your passion and your archetype is within those spaces and moving into it, and then collectively working together over time to keep building, because we're anchoring in a new reality. And we anchor that reality in through where we consciously place our attention, intention, and joy, fun, and play.
Yeah.
Because if we're not having fun doing it, guess what? The same freaking thing's going to come back. We'll be watching the same crazy show that's happening on Earth. It's the best show in the universe right now. You got like a guy running for the presidency that's been almost killed twice, and another guy that could be a robot, and who knows what the other one is, and all this crazy stuff happening. And all of those things are places that a lot of unconscious attention is placed.
Mm-hmm.
And as Ryan was sharing, it's all centralized, all that stuff. So when we start to become aware of what is centralization, what is decentralization, then it becomes a lot easier to see, well, where does my why align to?
100%, dude. And the way that I talk about it is, we all know what a thirst trap is, right? We all know what that is. Centralization is one big thirst trap. That's all it does. It's to build up hype, right, around things that are usually pretty fucking toxic, right? Like, think about politics for a second. In the idea, right, the idea of politics sounds great, right? We're going to work together to make a greater world, right? But what do we know about human beings? And what do we know about the whole idea of government, right? It's like, hey, humans are naturally untrustworthy. So what do? Okay, here's what we do. We create an elite class of human beings to rule over other human beings. But wait, weren't human beings naturally untrustworthy because of all these negative polarizing things and all of these things? Yeah, but it makes sense, right? No, it doesn't actually at all. But a lot of us have just bought into it. And what do you get? You know, not to go in the nuts and bolts here, but what do you get when you talk to people about like decentralization? Yeah, well, have fun fixing your roads with no government and things like that. People are unaware of the fact that income tax, literally zero, big fat zero of that goes to any of our roads, goes to anything like that. Sales tax, gas tax, those are what pay for our police, fire, etc. So at the end of the day, the idea of working together to create harmony in society, that idea is awesome. But that idea is not what centralization is. It's actually what decentralization means. And at the end of the day, think about social media, right? One of the things that I loathe about Instagram, and I still choose to be on there, right? I'm not victimizing myself here. But one of the things that I don't like about it is the fact that they have an algorithm and they can just push whoever they want to push. And what do we know about social media? There's so many amazing things on there, right? Conversations like this happening, you know, incredible people talking about how to change your mindset, how to, you know, really find your why, all these incredible things. Well, what gets prioritized? Thirst traps and cat videos. What if there were 1,000 different Instagram type organizations and one of them started doing that? Well, people would just be like, nah, thanks. We're going to go to the other ones. And they wouldn't be able to do that because if they went to go do that, we would just go, no, thanks. We don't want that information anymore. Those of us that didn't anyway. And we'd move on to other platforms that prioritize the right kind of information. So wherever you look at it, centralization to me is like a cancerous growth. It really is, right? It sounds great in theory, but how it plays out is very similar to communism. Communism, oh, sounds great in theory, right? We're all going to work together. We're going to be equal. Doesn't play out that way, obviously, right? So at the end of the day, a lot of things can sound good in theory, but through actual adaptation of it, you start to realize that this doesn't work, you know? And the answer I really feel is decentralization. That's my personal belief around it. And when we look at like, you know, everything that we both work on, you know, crypto, whatever, it is fun, man. It's fun to see a bunch of new projects popping up and for them to all know, like, I have to really put my best foot forward if I want to survive in this world, right? There's not just BlackRock coming in, making one cryptocurrency and that's it, right? They can do whatever the fuck they want and we just have to deal with it because we're all bought into this cryptocurrency. No, if they did that, see ya. We're just going to go to another one, right? So it's a really cool concept, man. And I'm very, to use a crypto term again, bullish on it because it's fucking fun. And I've always learned in my life, or I've always known in my life, that if I follow the fun, it doesn't make any logical sense. But when I follow the fun, I end up exactly where I'm meant to be, with the exact right people I'm meant to be with, doing the exact things that fire me and the rest of the people I'm around with up the most, you know? And when that happens, magic ensues and you start to feel like a kid again, but a kid that can do really cool adult shit. You know, you don't become adulterated, you know, you end up being a kid that remembers how fun it was as a kid to drive a car, right? Or, you know, to be able to buy whatever you want, right? And, you know, have fun and have your friends over and have sleepovers whenever you want, right? Like all these things that we loved as kids, they're still in there. They're just clouded over with a bunch of coulda, shoulda, woulda, a bunch of that would be nice if, all these, you know, diseases, all these fucking victim thoughts, all these things, you know, all these pressures of I got to pay taxes and all these things. When in reality, let's just say that that's not the only frame of reference here, right? That's not the only way you can live life, you know? And I see most people that see some people that, you know, maybe they think live this life like an Elon Musk or even a Donald Trump or whatever. They just get mad. Why are they not paying taxes? Why? Instead of asking, why am I paying taxes? Like, wait a minute. If they can get away with it, what do they know that I don't? That's when life starts getting fun. Because what you'll realize is that all of that stuff is extremely available these days, right? Like the internet in quite a few different ways is decentralized. And obviously we've realized that over the last, you know, decade or 2 decades, they've worked really hard to centralize a lot of parts of it, but you can still find some really cool information out there that will free you, free your family, and allow the rest of life to just be play, where you are just doing exactly what you were meant to do here on Earth. and you are giving that magic to the world, and you are pouring from an endlessly overflowing cup because you are so charged up and fulfilled from what you do that nothing can stop you. Even if they kill you, you're an infinite being. So whatever, just like Jesus went through, right? The crucifixion was not, painful to Jesus. Why? Because he had a guiltless mind. He understood that he was infinite. He understood that he had never left God. And so as they're driving stakes into him and asking, why don't you feel pain? He's like trying to tell them, like, guys, I have a guiltless mind. Like, the body isn't real. It's just a projection from the ego. None of this is actually the way that we think it is unless we choose to believe it is, because whatever we believe, we become. So true.
Man, bro, so much good stuff in there. For me, like, everything you shared comes down to like a few core principles that I live by and is part of my why and part of Rainbow Bridge's why. And that's co-creating sanctuary through education, empowerment, and embodiment. And when we start talking about decentralization or centralization, you cannot be unconscious in a centralized experience and be educated, empowered, and embodied. You cannot do it. Won't work that way. Yeah. Okay, maybe you've got the physique, but you won't be there in the mind, and the spirit. Like, you can have a piece of it, is what I'm saying, but it won't be the full thing. So when we start to enter into that space of sovereign beings of free will, what does it mean to be sovereign, right? Like, okay, your individual cell in a human vessel is sovereign. It has all its own functions, but it cannot last without the whole. So when I say I'm a sovereign being, I recognize I'm a sovereign vessel of creation. Like, that's really where it is. I'm just this piece of it, like you were saying. It's not real, right? Don't get caught up in the illusion. But we've been educated as humans here on Earth to believe the illusion. The ego is, in my opinion, and this is how the insight I've come to. Creator gave itself a great gift by being able to forget it was creator and remember itself again. So a lot of people are like, kill the ego. And I'm like, yeah, but more actually like kill your attachment to thinking you're the ego. Yeah. Let the ego be. The ego's like a little child. Like, you got to give it its rules. You can let it out sometimes. It's never going to grow to an adult. I think mostly it maybe will get to like 12 years old, So you always kind of hold that perspective. And in doing that, it allows the space to realize where has the education been to keep us in a certain frequency. And my brother mentioned how you mentioned something about cancer.
Oh, like centralization is a cancerous growth. Yeah.
Right. And how do we kill cancer? Well, Dr. Royal Rife proved through sympathetic resonance, you can play a frequency. So sympathetic resonance is it's like an opera singer hitting a high note and a glass breaks. When the amplitude of the frequency, the volume of it goes more than the mass can resonate to, the mass falls apart. So Dr. Raymond Royal Rife, for anybody who is not familiar, made these Rife machines in the 50s using frequencies, high radio frequencies, and he would play it and it would kill the cancer cells. Well, what do you think happened? Of course, his career got destroyed, his machines got destroyed, and he got sabotaged. And the technology went, quote unquote, nowhere. Well, it didn't go nowhere. It's still out there, and I used it to beat Lyme. But so what we're doing is we're killing this cancer of miseducation. And the only way to do that is by raising the frequency. And the only way to do that is by educating yourself about what's possible. Like you were bringing up Christ, and it's like Christ is educated on a multidimensional level to know that this isn't where it ends. So the response, God gave us a mind. It's up to us to use it. But first feel. You got to feel in the heart, because if we're not feeling in the heart and it's just the mind, we come back to this. Yeah. And then, so how does this fractal into the crypto space? Well, look, to be here on Earth right now, embodiment is mind, body, spiritual, and digital. Unless you're living in the middle of the jungle. Most of us are not. Most of us our life is directly impacted every single day by technology. So if we're not choosing to be consciously embodied in that space, where else are we choosing not to be consciously embodied in? And so what I'm saying is the digital is a hack, y'all. You can do so much work so much faster on the digital side and watch it anchor into the physical. Rather than, look, you can have the vision of wanting to go to Tibet and pray with the monks, but it's going to take a lot to get there. Alternatively, you could probably find something online, a community that you have that linked up right away. And there it is. There's a step forward. And, whether it's through a centralized platform or decentralized, I think what's important is to think about it like this. Neither Ryan nor I are accredited professors at a university. Neither Ryan nor I have any sort of university or doctorates or any of that stuff. But what Ryan and I both have is a shit ton of life experience of knowing some ways that maybe don't work. And what does it take to become a master in a field? 10,000 hours. So I like to think of it 10,000 tries. If I try something 10,000 times, I'm going to do it wrong 10,000 times. So the best thing to do is come together with people who've already done shit wrong so you can get a jump ahead. And so what I'm saying about the decentralization is, look, whether we're on Riverside or we're on School or we're on Telegram or we're on Instagram, we are decentralized educators. And the first people that we're educating is ourselves. And when I heard my brother say this earlier in his share, we educate ourselves, we implement it, we heal, we embody it, and then we teach it beyond to ourselves. Like we're teaching it to ourselves. Learn, heal, teach. Or is it learn, teach, heal? Could be all three, any direction. Brian shared that.
Oh, sick.
So, yeah. So what I'm saying is, like, to plant this seed, because I know that Web3 and blockchain can be overwhelming. There's so much happening and there's so much attention being placed only on the coins. But really, it's what my brother and I are talking about here. It starts about placing the attention on the why and the play. And this space allows us to do that really quick. Now, of course, there's all the other parts. Do I know coins that most likely are going to 10x, 20x, or 30x? Yeah, I know a lot of those. Do I know? Do we here, Ryan and I, know how to make moves fundamentally across chains? Yes, we know how to do that. Are we building together in community for the long term? Absolutely. But it didn't happen without all that other stuff I mentioned before.
Yeah, dude. 100%, bro. Perfectly stated. And I love what you talked about being decentralized educators, because one, super accurate. Number two, one of the things that Mark told me, one of the first times I ever, I forget if it was in his course or, where it was, but you remember 30% of what you hear, 50% of what you write down, and 80% of what you teach. And so it's a natural progression, right? You're going to hear something. If it really resonates with you, you're going to be like, oh shit, let me jot that down for later, right? And then as you go through the process, the final step is to then teach it, because we also, like you were saying, are teaching it to ourselves. I tell everyone in the Conscious Cannabis Collective, like, I'm learning more about my relationship with cannabis each and every day as well. It's not like I've reached this destination and I'm the guru in the group. Like, I think that shit is toxic as hell. I make sure everyone that works with me knows, like, I'm not a guru, guys. The only thing I may have that you might not have is more times fucking around and finding out to know what doesn't work and maybe have a better idea of what is working at the current time. That's it, right? And that's ultimately, for me, why I always work with people like yourself, people like my buddy Mark, like people like Ani, my business coach, because I understand the best coaches and mentors are not people that are like, I have it all figured out. I am a perfect human being. They're the people that are like, hey, I've been at this for a while and I've tried a lot of things and I can help you disseminate through the immense amount of information out there to just get really clear on what's working right now. And also to be able to have someone on your team that's like, hey, that old thing we were doing isn't really working anymore. Let's figure out a new way to go forward and try. And if you get 3 people together, even just 3 people, well, now you've magnified your chances of finding what works and what doesn't work times 3. Now, what happens when you get 5 people, 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, 10,000 people, 1,000,000 people, right? Like, that gets exponentially wilder. And when you think about it this way, I'm kind of torn between 2 things, but let's put it this way. Our most valuable resource, I really feel here, is time, right? Attention and intention are very close, but without time, you can't have any attention or intention. So time has to be the most valuable. And at the end of the day, what do we know about life, right? In this reality, that is not really reality, but if we're going to take it, as just to not be confusing, this reality, everything has a start date and an end date. So we're not going to be here in this meat suit, in this illusion of separation forever. And so if we can find things that allow us to get to a particular destination or a particular stop on the endless journey that is life in a quicker and more efficient manner, why wouldn't we want to do that, right? If time is the most valuable resource, then why wouldn't we want to seek out ways that we can quantum leap and kind of hack the time equation here? And that's what all of this stuff is. For me, when I went to college, it was almost the opposite. Like the idea was, hey, you're going to come here, you're going to learn things so you can go do something really cool in life. But when I went there, it was like, well, it has to take 4 years. That's how much time we have decided upon as a governing body it takes to learn a certain subject. Then you go there and you realize how fucked up it is, because the first 2 years of my psychology degree were not me learning anything about psychology. It was like the same general education shit I had just learned in school. So immediately I was like, wait a minute, I could have learned how to get this degree in 2 years, but it has to be 4 because basically, right? And so you start realizing that, once again, centralization is not really working in the same way that decentralization is. Decentralization speeds up time. Centralization makes time almost like take longer. It takes longer to get to certain destinations. So for me, understanding that time is the most valuable resource, it's a no-brainer which one I choose. And again, everyone gets to make that choice for themselves, right? There's no judgment here. It's just, going through this, I now know discerning wise what I will do and what I will not do. And in a year from now, I'll probably have a whole new list of things I will no longer do and will choose to now do. So again, life is just a cyclical process of learning this stuff. But, I'm 33. So when the dot-com boom happened, I was like 9 years old. So, at the end of the day, I don't really remember what it was like. But my dad was really bullish on the internet. And my dad made a lot of money because he believed in something most people were like, dude, that's stupid. It's never going to take off. What are you even doing, right? So it's very much like history is deemed to repeat itself, right? And so when we look at Web3 and blockchain and we look at some of the players getting into it, like the BlackRocks, like the Vanguards, like the State Street, I was talking to my neighbor the other day, and, she's older, and she was like, Ryan, like, I feel it with you, but like, what happens if, what happens if I lose my money and things like that? And I'm like, yeah, that's always something that can happen within the space. Only put in what you're willing to lose, right? Nothing's guaranteed. But also when you start looking at 10 years ago, if you were looking at, let's say, Bitcoin, just to make it very realistic and easy for people to understand, because I'm sure they've heard of Bitcoin. If you were looking at Bitcoin 10 years ago, yeah, there was a much stronger argument of like, what even is this thing? Like a lot of people already got it, but like there was a bigger argument of like, what is this? Not a lot of, people are backing it, yada, yada. These days, when I hear that, I get it because I was uneducated at one point too. So I understand, right? No judgment. But also like the feeling that comes up inside of me when people are like, I don't know if I can put $100 into like Velo, let's say, right? I don't know. What if something goes wrong with it? And I'm like, listen, like it's really at this point, as long as something has real world utility, it's not just like a meme coin, which are very volatile. You can make a lot of money, but you can also lose a lot of money very quickly. As long as something has real world utility, the chances of it just completely getting annihilated are like next to none. And also the most important thing is learning lessons, right? Throw in $10 to something and play with watching charts and learning how to read charts. And with $5 or $10, see what happens. Don't go crazy and just put all your life savings in something you know nothing about. We're not telling you to do that, but start practicing, right? There are even places I know where you can go and basically mock trade. You can basically just like take fake money. It's not real, obviously, but like it's like a simulation where like, let's say you could onboard 10,000 of fake money. Do your best to make good picks on different cryptos and things like that. And just see over time, like what your track record is. Like this does not mean you have to go put your life savings in there or stop, funding your IRA or any of these kind of things that you might be doing. It just means like, listen, guys, personally for Amethyst, we really believe this technology is going to continue to get wild and wild. And like we talked about, it's not even really about crypto. Like there's so many other amazing aspects to the idea of Web3 and blockchain, but let's just take it very literal, for most people because they've heard about cryptocurrency. At the end of the day, like, this is going to continue to take off. So even if you don't want to put any money in right now, that's fine. Just go on a simulation and practice, get your feet wet with it. Look up some mining things you can do, right? I'll link some of the miners that I use in the show notes that do not require you putting any money in. And worst case, they go to zero and you just wasted a couple minutes every day hitting some buttons. Best case, you make, let's say even $10. Let's say, what about $1,000? I mean, one of your brothers shared that he's made over 200 grand mining, just like hitting buttons on his phone, forgetting about it for a year, going back and being like, oh shit, I guess there's money that ended up there, right? So there are a lot of ways to get into just the cryptocurrency side without ever having to put money into it. Then you think about apps like Bloom, right? Bloom is a miner that Amethyst and I both use, and they have a great educational platform too. They teach a lot of basics about crypto, and then you got Amethyst here when you want to learn like the real deal of like how to move in the private and a lot of things we're not going to talk about specifically in detail here. But there's a lot of fun stuff you can do here, and it's supposed to be fun. It gets to be fun, right? Go find out where you have fun in this space because there's infinite things you can do in this space. So it doesn't have to be just one thing or just the other thing that someone's talking about. You don't have to be stuck on reading charts all day if that's boring to you. Just go find what Web3 and blockchain is and go, you know what? Yeah, maybe these guys interested me a little bit here talking to this podcast. I'm going to just look up what the hell even is Web3? What are people doing with it? And maybe you find like, oh my God, I'm an artist and people are doing stuff with NFTs. That's cool. I'd never heard of that before. Maybe that's the way you get into it. For me, I like the cryptocurrency play. I like the mining play. I like the trust plays. That's how I got into it because that's what excited me. That's what was fun for me. So once again, follow the fun. You don't need to do anything that feels like work to you right off the bat, unless it's just one of those things of like the ice bath analogy, right? Yeah, you want to get healthier, but you got to go in an ice bath to do it. That's going to be a little uncomfortable. But if you remember that it's going to get you healthier and it matters to your why, then it's going to be easy to do. So again, there are things in the space I've done that aren't like, oh boy, that's the most exciting thing ever. But I can contextualize them in helping me get to the thing that really does matter for me, my why. And because of that, they become more fun. And I can contextualize it and then essentially make magic happen where now I've been able to shift the story on top of this one individual task that maybe isn't exciting for me and be able to grandiose, scheme it into the full vision. And now I've created a spiritual alchemical process where now I can be like, yes, I'm excited to do that thing. Even though it doesn't really beam me up, that one thing, what it leads to beams me up. And so if this is the price I got to pay, I'm happy to pay it over and over again.
Yeah, man. Yeah, so much goodness in there. And I want to say, in regards to a lot of what you're talking about with the blockchain and cryptocurrency and the possibilities out there, and then how you opened it with cycles, right? And how things move cyclically. And you brought in your dad's experience during the internet when people were like, yeah, it's crazy. If people are saying that, pay attention because they're saying that now about a lot of the stuff that you have access to through people that like Ryan and I. And that things move cyclically. Get rid of the story that you're going to be a millionaire from your first investment. Just throw that right out the door. The money that you're going to make in the space for the most part is most likely you're going to have the greatest windfall from places that maybe you didn't really always expect it. Okay. So a project that is like that is Dr. Kimchi. Ryan and I have talked about it. It's a meme coin that's made by people who are consciously aware, here to do the greatest things for Earth. And it's meant to expose the lies of big pharma and bring the truth, actual cures for cancer. They have doctors on the team. It already did a crazy run, broke back down, is building back up for another one. So it's amazing when you see the type of people doing things in this space too. And the cyclical nature, okay? So this space moves cyclically. The charts, all the charts are a representation of human energy, intention, attention, and emotion. That's it. Then they attach names and currency to them. But they all read, basically, most of them move similar, right? And any chart you look at is going to move according to the Fibonacci sequence. So it's grasping that all of this stuff moves according to universal principles. Okay, so once we learn those, we align our reality through the techniques to get us in that frequency. And one of the key things here on Earth, as my brother was saying, is learning how to work with time. And I love the analogy you made that centralized slows it down and basically puts a fucking limiter on humans here on Earth. And decentralized allows us to move into our highest, most optimal timeline, right? So in that space, what are we able to do when we come together in supportive community where there is trust? Because it is the leading edge right now. You are still so early, even if you aren't in crypto, but you're just listening to this podcast. You could literally buy a crypto right now for under 2 cents that BlackRock owns a bunch of, is like partnered with. You can't go buy any stock of theirs for that little bit of money. So think about that. And when we're talking about BlackRock, look, these players are around. Okay. And in the centralized world, it's hard for us to redirect their currency. But in this decentralized world, it's pretty easy to buy stuff and move it and move your currency wherever you want. And the goal is, my goal in this space is to have private blockchains with private AI apps. And I'm working with, Ryan mentioned a bunch of his teachers. I'm glad he did. I love mentioning my teachers, Boli and Congo and Quasi and Human and Page and El Crypto and Napoleon Hill. Notice I mentioned an author. Some of these people I work with in real life, other ones I study and I learn and I template things from how they became successful in mindset into my own experience. But the goal is to basically create private spaces that are outside the purview of anybody's observation that is not a member in those spaces. And to become a member in those spaces requires certain moves to be made. Is your mindset stuff square? Is your crypto fundamentals square? Great. Have we met? Do we know each other? Is there, okay, cool. Now we're building longer term. And this is one of the most beautiful things I experienced on the retreat is like, I didn't know, but everybody's been getting on calls for like a year and a half. So everybody's already got relationships with each other. And it's just now we're stepping forward into those relationships. And that to me is the beauty of the space. There's people I work with. Unity is one of my teachers. He's also my partner in digital stewardship. So it's like, be humble enough. Let me say humble. Just be aware enough to always be learning. And that's the great thing about this space right now is there's a crazy amount of areas that you can learn. And Ryan is right. The timing of it is that more than likely, if you invest in a project that is history, you're going to do well. Okay. Now, but you can also play meme coins, whatever you want to do. So the timing, the seasonal, the cycle of it is, and to do it the way that's most aligned, not because you want to make a lot of money fast, not because you want to get out of the job you're in that you don't like, but to actually make the real deal foundational shifts that you're not going to be making decisions based on limiting beliefs. And when we link up and click up in this way, in this space, the currency becomes so much more active and agile. And it becomes, I love to think of currency as water. And then in this space, it's like air. It's like electric. It's like zipping and zapping all around. Water moves. Water holds information, but it takes a lot to move water. It's heavy to move water, and it can move in crazy ways. The electric stuff can just zip, 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 zap so fast. So it's really an amazing time to be here and to be able to step into these spaces of awareness, because that's really what we're talking about. It's like coming into awareness around, hey, what am I doing?
Yeah, dude, 100%. And it's so fucking fun, dude. Like, the highlight for me at the retreat, there was a couple of them, but I wanted to bring them up now because they're just really funny. And, for me, like, this is the ultimate win for me, what I'm about to talk about, right? Like, yes, everything I do, like, it's all a huge win for me. Like, the podcast is a big win. The communities are a big win. All these things I do are wins. But the biggest win for me is when we're all in person, having a fucking blast together. And like you said, right, I've, had some of these students for just about 2 years now in the Conscious Cannabis Collective. We met up. It was like we had known each other for years because we've talked online. And there was no like buffer period there. It was just like, oh my God, I can't believe you're a real human in person. And then let's go play Can Jam. Let's go do something, right? So the highlight for me was one night. It was me, you, Big Will, and anyone else who was, a night owl like we are. And it was after dinner. I know because we were really stuffed, dude, and we made a silly decision to go down and play with Nerf guns. And it was so funny, man, because I remember in this house, for everyone listening, it was a 12,000 square foot. They called it the Game Villa. And so the basement, they had this gigantic room that they had astroturfed the whole thing. And they had these two bouncy houses inside that you could inflate. And so it was great for Nerf guns because we could use them as like towers. So Will kept jumping over this ramp type thing into the inside of this bouncy house. And he pops up. And I forget if it was you. It might have been you. Someone shot him directly between the eyes, dude. And I remember just like laughing so hard I could barely breathe. Will's laughing. Like all you heard was like across the whole room because everyone was laughing so hard. And I was like, that right there is the ultimate win for me. Hearing grown men, it was just men playing at that point, hearing grown men laugh like little kids, unable to breathe because we're having so much fun. We're all aligned in a similar mission, right? Again, Wu-Tang Clan, we all got our individual things going. We're all coming together and we're just really living. Like that's real living, right? Just laughing until you can't breathe, right? Then having the fireside chat. We had a very similar chat to this around the fire, right? A legitimate reasoning session from the Rastafarian culture, and really just connecting with cannabis and talking about Web3, blockchain, the new earth and all of these things. And, one of my other favorite wins was Milan, mentioning, hey, I'm going to go back to Europe and start a faction over there, right? I'm going to start a conscious circle. And, he teamed up with Banksy, who's from the UK. And he's also going to be teaming up with one of my other students, Yella, who's from, I think, Germany or around there somewhere. And now they're going to start meeting up and connecting and whatever, right? And like, that's what it's all about. It's about being able to have fun with the people that you love and being able to usher in a new generation or a new beautiful world for generations to come. And I think that for me, that's all I'm interested in these days, and the other things are just bonus, right? Making money from crypto, bonus. Now we can give that money back, buy land back, like be able to do good things with the money because like you were saying, BlackRock, these companies, they're there. And they play an important role in the world, right? They're not useless. They're not bad. They're just the villain in the story that we're playing out here. And just the same way that in Star Wars, Luke would have never become the Jedi that saved the entire universe if it weren't for Darth Vader, right? He needed that villain to be able to really discover his true self. So at the end of the day, I am grateful for this centralization and everything that's happened because it's allowed us to really start figuring out like, hey, how do we do this on our own? How do we take back all of our power? And at the end of the day, these companies like BlackRock, we can't just wish them away, right? We don't have our manifestation powers to that point yet, right? Nor would we want to because we need them here, right? To allow us to rise to the occasion. But the best thing we can do is start realizing what they're backing, get into that stuff, make a metric fuck ton of paper money or digital money, and then be able to do real world shit with that. Start putting it into education. Start putting it into potentially low income communities for education. Start putting it into buying land back, starting permaculture, food forests. Like all these things take money also to do. And so why not take advantage of these systems so we can start doing the right things with this currency? And think about it. If every one of you listening right now, I get around, 1,000 downloads a week. If every single one of you does something like this, well, now we have 1,000 more people doing it, right? Imagine if all of you get in, maybe you put, your money on the right spot and you end up making $100,000. Now we have 1,000 people that made $100,000. Think about what we can do with all that money, right? Think about what we could all do collectively. We could all get together and say, hey, I really like this aspect of life, so I'm going to build this. And then someone else goes, oh, well, I really like this thing, so I'll build that. And hey, when we need each other's service, we'll trade. We'll do a tradesy, right? So now that's once again decentralized. So, again, these are the things that really excite me. I know they really excite you. I know they really excite you guys because I got a shit ton of you guys hitting me up when I had Amethyst on the first time. And so we'll make sure to put, some of the resources for Amethyst down in the show notes and everything like that. But Amethyst, as we start to wrap up here, man, I'm curious for you. What was your ultimate highlight from the retreat? Is there one thing that sticks out to you? You can also break the rule and do 2 or 3. I did it. So if you have multiple moments, do share.
Well, wow. The whole thing, it's like you said, the play with the Nerf guns, just like going to a place and being like, oh, wow, there's all of this here. Like I play Nerf with my children, but I haven't played a Nerf battle we had a lot of Nerf battles. It wasn't just one, and we had different games in different areas. So that was definitely that aspect to play. I loved going to the waterfall, and I also loved that the fireside chat, how you and I had our own talk, our own tapping before that, and then into that. And then after that, how the container moved that night. Cause it was the last night, how everybody was moving together after that fireside chat, just like in communion with each other, moving around, talking to each other. Can Jam was amazing too. And, so the highlights of it, it's just, the absolute highlight for me, the biggest win is getting together with people that are in a similar frequency and a place in life. And I got to meet Jen OG, and I got to meet Jen and Pete, and I got to meet Sheev in person and everybody else that was there. And I got to meet Rachel and you, and it was just like, wow, like real people in real community and watching this decentralized aspect. Now you're talking about Milan and Banksy and your other friend out there who's going to start some kind of, fractal of this experience or anchor in some new thing over there. And so to me, it's just like, that's the biggest win. And then coming home from that into what I'm doing with that energy, like, okay, like here it is. This is where we're moving with. I want to say one thing too, like what I love is that we can have these types of conversations around a fire or through a podcast and just plant some seeds of like, look, think about what it's like to be able to instantly send currency with no record between you and the ones that you love. There's protocols out there right now that are done on the Bitcoin blockchain, but don't record any information. So you could send things back and forth without a record. So when you start to think, and this goes to what Ryan was saying, is like, look, this place has rules. Right now, this place is polarized. Why is it so polarized? Well, there's been a lot of subconscious collective mushing down of the shadow. And now the shadow is so big, everybody's got to look at it and integrate their piece of the shadow, because it's all of our shadow projected outwards. And like when we become aware of these possibilities of what we can do and we're feeling like happy and playful and joyous about it, things like this open up. Like, man, how am I going to off-ramp money? Oh, well, here's a non-KYC debit card. Oh, man, how am I going to get my money out of the bank in case the banks all collapse? Oh, well, here's a link to UPMA, United Precious Metal Association, a gold-backed private membership bank in Utah, where you can get a debit card issued and you can send your money ACH from the bank over there. Oh, and by the way, when you open an UPMA account, it's actually a trust. So you just granted your funds into a trust. So it's like when you start to get in these spaces, these things just start showing up. And it's like that time acceleration. So my biggest win is being able to be in the space of doing these things while also knowing that this is physically happening in reality. Mm-hmm. And it all started from Ryan, and I'm saying this in this way, right? This is the retreat that it all started. Like he said, it was all a dream. It all started with him deciding to make a change in how he was showing up. And look at what it's blossomed into. And I'll say, like, one of my favorite things about my relationship with my brother here is, like, I've learned so much from him. We trade things with each other. Yes, he was in my mentorship program. I'm learning from him as a mentor in a lot of ways as well. So I love to see this. And this is the thing, like, as y'all are in this community, start turning on and making these choices, you're going to watch what happens and grows and builds in this community and beyond, and who you're connecting. And it's beyond what anything can be imagined. So thank you, bro, for inviting me to this podcast. Thank you for inviting me to the retreat. Thank you for inviting me in your life. And thank you for this whole community being amazing. I love y'all.
Yeah, dude, you're the man, bro. I love you so much. And yeah, we'll put the ball in your guys' court, right? If we can do it, so can you. We do not have anything that you guys don't have, right? I was not born with a silver spoon in my mouth. Neither was Amethyst. And I definitely had all the limiting beliefs about putting myself out there. What will people think if I say something stupid? All these things that I can now look back and realize were silly, but I had to work through those things, right? At the end of the day, just that last belief, for instance, it wasn't about what other people would think. It was about what I would think of myself. Would I still love myself? Would I still be able to continue to love myself if I messed up a word on a podcast or things like that? That was the real fear. But I had to figure that out through going out there and doing it and realizing, oh, actually, if someone ever decided to diss me about something I said or whatever, that says everything about them and nothing about me unless I get triggered over it. Then what they just gave me was the gift of seeing something that I believed about myself through the projection of another person, right? Anything that we are talking about here, you guys can totally go do, and you'll do it amazing and in totally unique ways that we could never do it, right? And that's the beauty of all of this. So, bro, it's been so amazing to have you on. And I'm going to ask you a last question. I'm going to do this off the cuff, so we'll see how this goes here. But let's say someone listening to this is really interested in the idea of decentralization. Where is the first place you would have them go to as a good jumping off point to kind of dip their toes in or maybe get their feet wet? Something of that nature.
Well, you could go to digitalstewardship.world. I've got an ebook up there with a 2-part masterclass that Ryan was in, I think, or yeah, you were in it, right?
So.
There's a group of people that we're working with at the time that were in it. But it's an ebook, a 2-part masterclass, and a workbook. And basically, my whole goal with that piece right there is to give the keys for the fundamentals of mindset and awareness in crypto so you can be in the frequency with it, that it's not thinking about it from limiting beliefs. It's like, what's possible, not what do I need? What do I have to get? And that's a great place to start because I talk a lot. It's a vast space. But the key things to know is the basic principles of the space and foundationally how it is. So beyond that, there's tons of resources out there. But my whole thing is I want to give people a space that they can come to in trusted community and build with long term. A lot of this stuff out here you catch on YouTube is going to be people that are working with specific coins or protocols or whatever. I'm not saying everybody, but it's not too far off for someone to offer somebody a wallet full of coins to make a few videos. And you'll see people every run. This is the thing. I'm going to be here in the bull run and I'm going to be here in the bear market. I'm not going anywhere. I've been here since 2017 and I'm in communities that haven't gone anywhere either. So whether the market's up or down, we're still going to be working together because there's ways to keep things moving in either season.
Yes. Dude, spoken like a true gangster. You guys, I had so much fun on this episode. Anytime I get to dive in with Amethyst is a really special day for me. And seriously, right? Like, don't let this just be another episode that gets you excited or whatever it makes you. And then you just move on to the next thing. Really feel into this, right? Really feel into a lot of the things we talked about, right? What is your why? Have you taken time to really get clear on that? Have you taken time to really ask yourself what you want your life to look like? What kind of people you really feel alive around? Where you might find those types of people? How you can get involved and make your life more exciting and more enjoyable and more euphoric and more fun? Have you thought about what crypto is or what the blockchain is? Like, don't let these things just be more information you take in and just, lose. We all have an immense amount of information coming into us. But I promise you, if you take what's in this episode and you run with it, you will have amazing things happen in your life. This is not stuff that I came up with. This is stuff that I've learned from the greatest mentors I've learned from. Amethyst has learned from the greatest mentors he's learned from. And we're bringing together to really allow you guys to see, at least for us, what has really supported us in moving through life and being able to have a lot of fucking fun and a lot of fulfillment doing it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you loved the show, of course, you know what I'm going to say next. Please go give us a 5-star review. It helps out so much with getting the show out to more people, which we are super appreciative of. And until next time, no matter where you are in the world, I hope you are having the best day ever. And as always, may the source be with you. Peace for now, everybody. Bye.